Inside every trust, someone has the authority to commit money. The question is how much authority and who decides that. On this channel, we've helped hundreds of individuals set up family trusts using the same information I'm going to share with you today. And the best part about it is you don't have to spend 7 years to start putting the pieces together because I've already done it for you. Look, I've read full encyclopedias on trust, on business trust, case law, taken private wealth classes, and witnessed the power of trust firsthand because privacy and a strong family unit mean the world to me. All you need to do is watch this video all the way through, and I promise you won't need to pay a stranger to help you protect your assets or to help you benefit your beneficiaries. Today, we're finishing the General Manager series, and this second part, the one about authority, is the one that determines whether everything the General Manager builds actually holds up. Spending limits, board oversight. What happens when a deal comes up? This is where the structure either proves itself or falls apart. Welcome to Wealth Locked In. If you haven't watched part 1 of this series, go watch that one first. Part 1 covers the general manager, what he does or her, the cash flow, work, the income, research, the property side of trust, financial operations. This video picks up where that one ends because here's what part 1 established. The general manager is one of the most active financial roles inside a well-run trust. They're researching deals, reviewing financial reports, visiting properties, building income streams for the beneficiaries. All of that requires the ability to make decisions, and decisions require authority. But authority inside a trust is not something you assume. It is not something you negotiate in a moment. It is something the Board of Trustees defines and documents and records in the minutes before the general manager acts or reacts on anything. That's what today is about. And if you've ever wondered how a trust keeps one person from having too much control over the assets, this video is the answer. The Board of Trustees must decide how much authority the general manager has to commit trust funds. That decision is not optional. It is not something that gets figured out later. It must be deliberate, recorded, and clear because the entire legitimacy of what the general manager does financially depends on it being documented properly. Now, one of the most critical factors in determining that spending authority is this. Is the general manager also the settlor, or the grantor, or the trustor? This matters more than most people realize. One of the foundational legal principles of a properly structured trust is that the settlor does not control the trust. The moment a settlor appears to be controlling trust assets, making large, unilateral financial decisions without oversight, without co-signatures, without documented board approval, the argument can be made that this is not a real trust at all, just a personal account wearing a trust name. That is the legal exposure you cannot afford. So if the general manager is also the settlor, or like the other titles, the grantor, trustor, spending authority must be set at a lower threshold, specifically to remove any questions about who actually controls the trust. And even if the general manager is not the settlor, even if they are the most capable, experienced, and trusted person in the trust group, defined limits still exist because the structure is designed so that no single person has unchecked authority over trust assets. I hope that makes sense. So what does this actually look like in practice? The general manager's discretionary spending limit is stated in the minutes, not assumed, not understood informally, written down, voted on, and signed by the Board of Trustees. General managers can hold authority to commit hundreds of thousands, depending on the size and frequency of daily transactions. But here's what happens the moment a deal exceeds that number. It's not just one additional trustee signing off. At least 3 trustees have to agree. All 3 must sign these documents. And the general manager, the person who researched the deal, evaluated the opportunity, and recommended the action, moves into an advisory role only. GMs should advise. They should not act. Let that sit for a moment because it's important. The person most responsible for identifying financial opportunities inside that trust, the moment a decision crosses a defined threshold, became an advisor, not an authority. That is not a demotion. That's the architecture of a trust that is designed to survive scrutiny. For smaller trusts, the typical discretionary spending limit runs between, $1,000 to maybe $5,000. We've talked about this in the administration series. If you haven't seen the administration series, I highly suggest that you go watch that because it's kind of like a broad overview of all of these different administrative positions that we've been talking about for these last 2 series. That number might feel conservative at first, but the spending limit is not just a financial guardrail. It is a governance statement. It tells every bank, attorney, financial institution, or court that ever looks at that trust, decisions here are made through a process, not by one person's judgment alone. That distinction, that documented process, is one of the things that makes a trust legally defensible when it needs to be. If this series is building a clearer picture of how a trust is supposed to operate, not just legally but operationally, you're in the right place. Subscribe right now and stay current on everything we're dropping. When you're done here, download the free What is a Trust ebook linked in the description. It reinforces every concept we've covered in this series from the ground up. And grab the Trust Book checklist pinned in the comments below. It is the practical tool that helps you know what needs to be in place before your trust can function at this level. Now let's just keep going. I have to say that this is YouTube. This is YouTube. The subscribers are watching these videos. I'm passionate about this work. I'm not gonna stop. And I want you to be successful in protecting your assets. So let's just keep going. If the Board of Trustees sets like a $5,000 discretionary limit for the general manager, but that decision was never formally documented in the minutes, then from a legal standpoint, it is very difficult to prove that limits exist or that the general manager operated within it. This is exactly where the general manager and the executive secretary's role intersect in the most critical way. The general manager acts, the executive secretary documents the action was properly authorized. One moves forward, the other creates the record that proves it was done correctly. Together, those two functions act and documentation from the foundation of a trust that can withstand scrutiny from a bank, an attorney, a regulator, or a court. And scrutiny will come. Maybe not this year, maybe not for years, but the purpose of building a trust correctly is that when it is tested, the structure holds. The minutes are the proof. The spending limits are the boundary. And together, they make the general manager's authority both effective and protected. I want to close this series with something that goes beyond the mechanics. The spending limits, the required co-signatures, the minutes that document everything, none of that is about this trust. It's about protection for everyone inside the trust. Protection for the general manager, who never has to operate in ambiguity. Their authority is defined. Their actions are documented. If their judgment is ever questioned, the record answers for them. Protection for the trustees, who are legally on the hook for every decision made inside this trust and need documentation that proves they were in the room paying attention and signing off on things properly. Protection for the beneficiaries, who deserve to know that the structure built to serve them cannot be dismantled by one person's unchecked decision making. And protection for the trust itself, so that the structure holds when it's challenged. That is the difference between a trust that was created and a trust that was built. Building a trust is an ongoing commitment to the right roles, the right structure, and the right level of discipline in how it's all documented and operated. That's what Wealth Locked In is here to help you build. Here is the move to make right now. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming in this series. This is just one piece of a much larger body of content being built for people serious about trust structures. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, it's on your screen. Go watch it right after this. Join the school community waitlist and get access to a group of people building alongside you. Download the free What is a Trust ebook in the description. It's the fastest way to get grounded before you take your next step. And grab the Trust Book GPS pinned in the comments below. It tells you exactly what documents you need to be in place for your trust to function at the level we've been talking about today. I asked if you guys wanted me to do a separate video on the Trust Book checklist, is what it was called back then, but I'm calling it the Trust Book GPS now because after going through it and combing through it and getting it ready for the video, I realized like it's really like a roadmap. It's really like a straight what you got to do to get there. So I want to present it in the best way so that you all know how valuable it is and how it can change your life. So that's why I haven't put the video out yet, but I'm going to put the video out. I hope you guys enjoy it. It might come before the trustee series. Now I know I've talked a lot about the trustee series and I'm looking forward to creating it for you guys. We've covered the executive secretary. We've covered the general manager, 2 parts from income building to authority and oversight. The next layer of this structure is the Board of Trustees itself, the decision-making body that everything else reports to and depends on. How are your decisions made? What happens when the trustee disagrees? And what does it take to qualify for that seat in the first place? That's where we're going next. Subscribe. Stay locked in. Peace.